Hello again. Welcome back to Tuesday's Tips. I'm Greg Kaiser, and in this weekly feature, we've been looking at image editing in general, Lightroom in specific, and what we have accomplished over the past several months is getting a good understanding of the global edits that are possible with Lightroom. We're just starting to dive into the local adjustments, which is where I think the power of image editing really comes through and allows you to kind of put your own spin on your photographs, and it really is kind of the performance of that image. We started last week with an introduction to masks, and that was part one, and that was kind of the basic masks that can be used for just about anything. This week we're going to get in a little bit more in depth, and we're going to look at some of the AI enabled masks and the masks that are used more specifically for people, which is, it's not something that I shoot as much as my landscape and decay, but I do have a photography or a portrait side to my photography, and we're going to talk about one of those recent sessions with this one. So I do want to give a shout out to Michelle, who came out here from Charlotte a few weeks ago, and we did, I think it was like a 2.5 hour session. Went really well, but I've got some photos here that we're going to talk about some local edits on, or at least the masks. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get into that. So we're going to bring up Lightroom, and like we did last week, we're looking at the masking within Lightroom. And masking basically is just a way of identifying a certain portion of the photo that you want to manipulate and deal with. If we go over here under the histogram, we've got this whole list of icons which we have gone through. The last one here, this disc, is a masking icon. And this brings up this dialog box that shows all the masks that I've applied. This is a virtual copy. This is what all I've done locally to this image. When we go in to create a new mask, we get the same selections that we talked about last week, only this time we actually do have a subject. If you'll remember, we talked about a landscape. There was not a defined subject. So this time we have a subject. So let's see what that does. If we do select subject, just left click there, it shows it's detecting. And we come up with this new mask, which is now mask 1. And this is what Lightroom shows as being the subject. You can see in green, we've got part of the couch, part of the fabric drape that I've got over the edge of the couch, some of the flowers, but Michelle is actually highlighted pretty well. And just like with any of the other masks that we talked about, if you go up here, click on mask 1, you have the option to add or subtract. And we can subtract, go down here to brush. And remember, I like doing 2 different brushes within Lightroom. My A brush is one I build up with a 30% flow. B brush is 100%. For this, I'm going to take the auto mask off. We're just going to do it real quick. Not going to spend a whole lot of time fine tuning. Just want to show you what is possible. And you see, we can kind of tweak what Lightroom has said is the subject, and in just a couple of seconds we have reduced the mask down to just Michelle. We've taken everything out, so we can then do whatever we want to. I don't like doing exposure adjustments here because, as you see, it doesn't look natural. There's too much of a division line, so I like to do exposure type work with a radial filter, which we talked about last time. But that's how to do subject. Now, let's say we wanted to do everything but Michelle. We can either go here with the little 3 dots, and we can go down to invert mask 1, or we can go over here and hit invert let's see, when we're set on subject, we can select invert here. So either way you want to do it, I usually prefer to check here. It's just simpler for me. We can take that mask that we just did, and it keeps highlighting whatever mask I'm scrolling over. But it'll take the mask and it'll invert that mask, and then you end up with everything but the subject. Now, another way of doing that is to go down here, select background. Now, if we do that, we're going to do the detecting, and it came up with essentially everything that it didn't deem as the subject. And you'll notice here that the couch is still not selected, this is not selected, and that's because the background and subject are very closely related in Lightroom. Obviously, it's made those differentiations. So in this situation, if we need to adjust this, we can go click Mask 2, which is the background, and we need to add a brush. And we're going to do the same thing, just in the opposite direction. We're going to add in the couch that is part of the background, if that's what we're wanting it to be. We're going to go ahead and highlight all of these things right here, make this brush a little smaller, come up and get this little bit right here, and now we have the background. So what would be another way of doing the background after we've made these manipulations? Let's go back to Mask 1, which you'll remember selected the subject, Michelle, and then we did a little bit of brush work to get the rest of this kind of doctored in. So let's say we did a lot of work with the mask there, and we want to do the background also. Go over here to these three dots, and then we're going to duplicate and invert Mask 1. So everything that we just did on that one mask, we're going to duplicate it, but we're going to invert it. So if you've done a lot of fine-tuning with masks and doing a very complex mask, and then you want to do the opposite of that mask, duplicate and invert, and you now have Mask 1 inverted. So we have Mask 1 here, we have Mask 1 inverted. So we've got the exact same masking, only inverted. Really, really handy with those complex masks. So that's select subject and select background. Select people is a real interesting one. I like this one a lot, and over here in this dialog box under the histogram, it's going to show detecting people. And it's going to take it a second, and then it's going to pop up with how many people are in your scene, and it's usually pretty accurate. Now, if you have multiple people in the scene, it's going to list them all out. If you have done a family photo, for instance, you may have 2, 3, 4, 5, however many people here. And it's usually pretty doggone accurate. So with person 1, we're going to select person 1. That's Michelle. And it's going to detect the person features. And here we have the option of doing the entire person, which is by default checked. But we can also go down this list. We can do facial skin, body skin. Just do the eyebrows. Remember, what's green is the mask. The eye sclera, that's the white parts of the eyes. Eyes and pupil, iris and pupil, that of course is the part that we really do like to get a lot of detail in. Lips, teeth, and if we zoom in up here, we can see exactly what the mask is doing. There we go, with the teeth. Come back out here, hair, and then clothing. So you can do the entire person, or you can say, I just want to deal with facial skin and body skin. So that's going to link these two together. Maybe you just want to do clothing, and that's just going to do that. So let's do facial skin, body skin. We're going to come down here and we are going to create mask. We can also create two separate masks. Since we have these, we can do a facial skin mask and a body skin mask, but I like to work skin together. It makes it more uniform, so we do create mask, and it's going to add mask 3 just as we had seen it in that preview. Again, I've got things set just to show green on a black and white. It makes it easy for me to see where the mask is applied. And if we are on here, we'll see how right here on the couch there's a little bit of green. Right here on the edge of the dress there's a little bit of green. This is not perfect by any stretch. It's getting better and better. But all we have to do is subtract, brush. I've got my B brush, do the auto mask for this. I don't want to go outside of the lines. I just want to get the extra gone. So there we go. We now have a mask for just the skin. We're going to create a new mask, select people, and after it's detected the person, it's going to come up even quicker. This time I want to do clothing. Create mask, and notice we don't have to create two separate masks down here. We can create the mask, and now we've got the clothing. So we can do whatever we need to do with the clothing. And now we know that it is just the clothing that's affected. Once we start affecting the change, it's just affecting those areas. So we can go in and do that. We can go in and change the color by doing this hue thing. So if we decide that green works better, we can do that. Change it to a blue. That's a real easy way, and if you don't like the effect, just double click and we can go back to normal. So that shows a lot of how we can deal with the people. And of course, it's however you want to do it, any combination, and then you can link a couple of different things here. Trying to think if there's any particular thing that we want to do here. Let's say we're going to do, we'll hold that for later. That'll be something we'll deal with another time. I want to go back through and look at some more of these things. So objects, we kind of talked about that last time. Let's see how useful objects can be. So we go over here. Remember, we've got two boxes here. We've got one that's kind of the freehand and one that's a box. Freehand, I generally like a lot better. Come over here, we'll make the brush kind of where we can work this out. And let's just go around this set of flowers back here. Doesn't have to be anything major as far as finding the edges. It should do that on its own. It's working. And look how seamless that is. This is really the catch-all mask. If you have something that is really weird, you can get those edges exactly right. It's a mask anything. So now we can come and adjust the brightness on that, however we want it to be. So there's a lot of things that we can do with these masks. We've talked about the radial gradients. Again, I like using radials with faces when it comes to exposure. And I will show you what I mean. With the radial selected here, we'll do a radial over her face, and we have that feather. Remember, the inner circle is what's being affected most, and the feather is between that line and that line. So we're having a gradual fall off of light here, so it really makes it more subtle. And editing is all about subtleness. And we can add just a little bit of exposure here. And I usually don't like to do more than about 1/3 of a stop at a time when it comes to doing portraits, because it starts to get too obvious, and I don't want to do something that's that kind of obvious. But if you go up here, you see what we've done is a radial. We take the eyeball and we slash it, and you can't see the effect. Now we see the effect. That's overdone. I've already done a little bit of lightening on her face, but you see how the effect is more gradual, because if we had done it the other way, let's delete this mask and let's go up here to create new mask, select people, select her, and let's just do facial skin, create mask. There is no feather here. It's just that green, unfortunately Incredible Hulk looking color there. But if we go up here and we do the same roughly third of a stop, there is no feathering, and that looks very obvious. And if we toggle that one mask on and off, that same effect, that third of a stop, without the feather, you see how abrupt that is and how it just does not look natural. It's not a good look at all. So the radial is better in those circumstances. What I like this type of person masking for is something like skin softening. So this has already been done, but I'm going to show you how I do it. Create a new mask, select people, select the person, facial skin, body skin, create mask. Now, we've already done this once before, but we'll go in and do this mask again. Now, over here in this dialog box, there's a couple things that we can do. We can go and we can adjust texture and clarity and even sharpness to kind of smooth the skin. In this situation, I've found that Lightroom has a really nice shortcut. And if you go over here to Custom, come down here and they've got a whole bunch of pre-done effects. And for skin softening, I am really a fan of the Soften Skin Light. Not the regular Soften Skin, that's way over the top for me, and I don't like it at all. But Soften Skin Light, I really like the effect. And you just left click that, and you can go over here and see what sliders have been affected. And this is another way to learn how to do this type of editing. We don't have anything that's been adjusted here. We come down, and this is where you see the difference. We have dropped 35 points in texture, 15 points in clarity, and that just smooths the skin just a little bit. And for somebody with really good skin, really good makeup, and you don't need to do that much, you've got this amount slider, which is available on pretty much all of these masks, and just drop it down. And of course, the best way to do that is to hit the space bar, come in here, zoom in, and see that's too plasticky for me, but I've also now doubled the effect, essentially, since I've already done this. But you can take this amount and you can play with it and do whatever you want, and it's always seasoned to taste. So that's kind of how I do the softening the skin. I could do frequency separation, I could do a lot of other different things with it. This is very quick, I think it's effective, and I haven't run into a situation where I don't like the outcome. I don't do a lot of skin softening, I just do a little bit. So we're going to delete that mask because that's just over the top. I like to have that little bit of texture going on, and I think that that is the way it should be. If we remove all the masks, that's what we started with. As you see, skin is in really good condition, and that's just with a little bit of softening, a little bit of lighting change. So let's go to another picture that I have worked out. Let's see. And let's go ahead and zoom out of this. This one has a little bit less complexity to it. There's not as much set. We have a chair here. So let's go in and look. These are all the masks that I had to do. Nothing major. We've talked about skin softening, so I did that effect there, gave a little pop to the hair, just came in, worked the eyes just a little bit, made a background, and then added a little bit of a vignette. That's all I had to do with this picture, and it got from here to here with local edits. This is where the power of image editing comes into play, is with these local edits. This is the global edit. That got me in the ballpark of where I wanted to be. That got me the rest of the way there. So again, we can select the subject. Did a really good job here, even differentiating from the chair. We can select the background. Again, subject and background are going to pretty much be related, and they're direct opposites, so I could go in and invert if I needed to, if I've done something really complex with the mask to arrive at this point. This is a pretty good workable mask to begin with. There is no sky. We can select people. Again, it's going to take it a minute the first time because it's looking at all the different parts of this picture and it's trying to see where all the people are. But after it detects it that first time, they're very quick. Lightroom is very quick to find the people once again. So it takes just a minute. There we go. And now it's breaking the features down. Same options are going to apply. And if you'll notice, the list is a little bit different because I know in the last one we had teeth. Well, Michelle's not smiling in a way where we see her teeth here, so that is not on the list. Lightroom has not detected teeth. However, we do have clothes, accurate, hair, accurate, lips, accurate, the iris and pupil, the eye sclera, the whites of the eyes, eyebrows, body skin, and facial skin. So all of that is there, and we can do whatever we would like as far as selecting, say, clothing. And we can create a mask, and we see here that it kind of bleeds over just a little bit in places that it shouldn't. Easy to fix. We can subtract, brush, B-brush. Let's just keep that auto mask going. And we can pull all the mask off from where it doesn't need to be. And there we go. There's the mask. So now we can do, I wouldn't recommend the exposure, although clothing is a little bit easier to work with than skin because we can make the clothing just appear lighter or darker. So we can do that. We can add a little bit of clarity to the clothes, give it a little bit of pop. Whatever we want to do. Now, with this particular outfit, one thing that I ended up doing in some of the pictures was I went in and kind of custom toned the corset part here just to give a little bit of added contrast. So what we can do, we've got clothing selected, and we can subtract this brush, and we're going to go ahead and subtract everything that's not the corset. And since we've made some adjustments, we can kind of see where we're subtracting, but if you need to double check, show overlay, check that, and you can see where I was a little sloppy pulling this mask off. We can just kind of go in and get it gone everywhere it does not need to be. And we're just wanting that corset. There we go. For a quick and fast edit, there we go. So now we can go in and we can play with the color here. We can do it either through the hue. See, we just kind of play around and see what we like. That would work. Or this little letterbox here for color effect. We can slide around here and we can find slightly different hues and saturation levels. And if we decide, no, that's just not working, I don't like that, we can come up here, original color being changed on that left-hand side versus the current color. Current color is what you have selected. We're going to do the original color here. We're going to X out. So it's easier and better to do this here. But then say we want to invert this mask. So we come up, let's see, on mask 3, let's invert. And that's now everything but the corset. So remember, we can always invert these masks. Bring it back to that. So that pretty much wraps up kind of how these masks work. Now, let me show you how to blend a couple of them real quick. Let's go back to, let's just do select subject, just for simplicity. And let's say I wanted more light fall off down on the lower side. I really wanted to bring more attention up here to her upper body and her face. So I can go in here, click on mask 4. We're going to subtract the linear gradient. And let's just say we want it to be very, very gradual. So we're going to start it low, but we want a lot of feather. All of the effect is removed here. This is all feather, and then all the effect is retained there. So now we have select subject, and we have a gradient involved. So we can now just brighten the upper portion. And it's as easy as that to change how the lighting falls on somebody. And if we liked the lighting at the top, but we wanted to darken the bottom a little bit more, what we would do would be to, let's see, should work this way. Let's invert. Okay, so we can darken everything around, including the lower portion. So it kind of does the exact opposite of what we had done. So these are just things that you can do to play around with a picture. Let's see. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the introduction of masks, and this kind of lets you know what the AI masks, mainly dealing with the people and kind of the sub selections that you can work with within people, how select subject works, how you can use the masks that we learned about last week in with this same way of doing things. And we're going to get into doing more masks as we go, and I'm really fighting myself not wanting to get in and show you what each of the masks can do. I just want to introduce how to get them, how to manipulate setting the masks up, and what a mask actually is. And hopefully at this point you have a good understanding of that. We're going to start getting into how to do these local edits, and we'll see a little bit more detail about what's going on. And there's a fair chance that next week we're going to break away from doing edits and we're going to talk about exporting. I had a great comment off of my last video that was asking about exporting a kind of small resolution JPEG from Lightroom and how the quality is just not really there. And There's some things that you can do to help boost that quality, but I do think that Lightroom is limited on exporting a reduced quality JPEG in comparison to, say, Photoshop. So we're going to talk about some of the differences there and how I would recommend that you do your exporting of your files with low resolution. When it comes to higher resolution and full resolution, Lightroom does fantastic, no problems there. I work with all my master files as a TIFF file. So that's a lossless, no compression, everything's there, 16-bit. JPEG starts getting into some compression and you start losing quality multiple times that you save it. But we'll talk about that more next time. I hope that you have enjoyed this. Be sure to check out the description below. I'll have Michelle's Instagram linked down there, and I appreciate her very much for working with me during this photo shoot. And we will see you again next week. So until then, happy shooting and happy editing. Thanks.